One thing that I really want to ask you guys, how has your parents affected the way that you look at life? Because I could go into a whole rant about how my mental shit with my parents and how my parents have treated me, not only back then, but now has affected my mentality and outlook on the world and stuff.
My parents are being awesome, and
Yeah, they are.
I'm
Shade.
very
Yeah, if you're
grateful.
lucky.
I don't mean to brag, except I do mean to brag. My parents are awesome, and everyone should think that my parents are awesome. Anyway, they've definitely affected how I view the world, whether that be through me helping them deal with their issues ever so occasionally, but also them saying, hey, here's a problem that I faced, and I think that you've been starting to experience the problem, so I totally understand if you need to figure it out yourself, but here are the solutions that I found and the things that helped me, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel, and that has been so helpful of them. I'm lucky enough that my parents have made me remember that I am not alone in this world, even when the rest of society seems to try and make me think I am.
Yeah.
And they've also really, really helped me interact with my friends and helped me, like, a lot of my friends have been helped by my parents through me because of things my parents have taught me. And I am incredibly lucky and privileged to be in that position. I will let other people talk now because I don't actually have much to say on this topic.
Sunny?
Oh, one sec. I'm just typing.
Okay. So I've mentioned
Sorry, I stopped typing. I'm all good now.
3 billion times that I was raised in a Christian household. I was raised in a Christian church. I worked in a Christian church as well for a while, working with the kids program. And I was very progressive compared to everyone else that was there. I was very vocal about the things I was passionate about, which was bullying and mental health, but also like the LGBTIQ community in terms of, even though I was vocal about it for the wrong reasons at the time, I was still quite vocal about the fact that we should be treating them a lot differently than the way we were. And a lot of that came from the fact that a lot of my mentality shifts and like the way that I am now came from the fact that I didn't like the way that my parents were treating people, certain people and communities, and I didn't like the way that my church was treating people and stuff. It's taken me moving out to realize how much blame I place on my parents for certain things that have happened in my mental health and all of that stuff. I'm still trying to figure out whether that blame is deserved or not. But yeah.
This is a great rant. These are the sorts of conversations that I love having, even though sometimes they're difficult to have. I love when we just all go off on a topic, whether it be something serious like this or rambling about a show.
A lot of my stuff comes from my feelings towards my parents. I love my parents. They've done so much for me. They mean so much to me, and I would not be in the place where I am without them, without their support. They help out a lot with LKM, and I appreciate that, but they are so difficult to deal with sometimes. The passive aggressiveness I get from them causes me so much anxiety. This year alone, we're 2.5 months deep into the year. In the month of February, 2 texts that my mum sent me gave me panic attacks. After 3 separate calls, they also triggered panic attacks. It is so hard to deal with parents sometimes. Yeah. I don't know what else to say about it. My parents have done so much for my mentality and my mentality shifts, because the way that they think and the way that they approach life, I've literally said, no, I don't want that. I don't want that to be the way that I approach life. I don't want that to be the way that I think about the world. It's super hard to shift your mentality from the things that you've learned from your parents. And your parents are literally like the only people you fundamentally don't know how to stand up to. It takes so much mental strength to stand up to your parents. And genuinely, I barely have enough strength to stand up to them. I would rather say, fuck it, it's too tiring. I don't want to put in the effort to stand up to them, because the aftermath of standing up to your parents is just sometimes not worth it. Sunny, what do you think is the biggest contributor to bad mental health in like gaming culture?
I don't, I'm extremely lucky, or maybe just in denial, but I'm pretty mentally sound. It also definitely is denial, but I'm pretty mentally sound, so I haven't really like clocked like the mental health issues of gaming.
Yeah, fair. What about you, Shay? Have you experienced any like bad mental health stuff in gaming in general? And what do you think is the main contributor to it?
When I was younger, I remember a specific time when I was younger that I went to my mum crying because somebody said something to me on a public Minecraft server. Other than that, I don't know. This might be one of those things that I haven't been paying attention to. What do you mean? Can I have an example?
Okay, so toxicity, in my opinion, exists in gaming. So toxicity for me is a mental health thing. I don't know if I've mentioned that, but toxicity to me is a mental health thing. It's about emotional regulation. And
Definitely.
I only say this because like I'm drawing this from myself and what I was. I personally am not good at emotional regulation. I'm trying to get better. I think I've been better. But back then, when I was toxic, it was a lot about emotional regulation. I sort of like got this from How I Met Your Mother. It's the chain of screaming, right? If someone screams at you, you're gonna want to scream at someone else to get that out. Basically, the negative energy gets passed on from person to person because you've received the negative energy. You just want to get it out the easiest way possible, and then you don't have to think about it. So for me, gaming toxicity comes from the fact that someone's been toxic to you, and you just want to get it out of your system.
Yeah, it's a
For me, a lot of mental health stuff comes from the fact that someone or something has made you feel a certain way, and because of that, it affects the way you play your game and the way you talk in your game.
As the child of a therapist, I can tell you that it's a very astute observation and it's true in most cases. Why am I treating this entire conversation like it's an English assignment?
I mean, it's good though.
I, for the most part, have managed to stay away from toxicity in gaming.
Same.
Leaf, by
I
all
know
means,
a
do it,
lot of
please.
people who use games as an escape, and escapism is often tied to mental health. I don't know. I think maybe because I am the child of a therapist, mental health is so entwined with everything. Like, I can link absolutely anything to mental health. So it's not like gaming specific, I guess.
I mean, like, the only reason I'm mainly tying everything back to gaming is because, like, the three of us, we're all very heavily tied into the gaming culture and streaming culture, and because it's growing, these issues are becoming way more apparent. That's why I like having these conversations, because I like just hearing people's experiences with it. Like, obviously, because I got into streaming quite recently, like, in terms of doing it myself, I'm not exposed as a streamer, but I've been watching streamers since I was in high school. It's really interesting that only now people are actually talking about it on streams.
Hello.
Hello, Eve.
Hello.
And Eve,
Hello.
Eve is one of the people who I've encountered that goes absolutely off about this. It's awesome to hear. Like, Eve,
It's usually on accident.
Eve, literally one of the first streams that I ever watched. No, it was the first stream ever that I watched of yours. You started going off about internalized. What's the word?
Misogyny?
Yeah, that one. And I'm still trying to work on that personally. I just didn't know the name for it until you named
Oh
it.
yeah,
for me.
no, I mean, I think it's just one of those things that for a lot of us, we could be dealing with it for basically the rest of our life. It's just something we have to unlearn,
Yeah.
a different thing we have to deal with. But the best we can do is just be aware of it and face up to it when it happens, you know, like a bad habit.
Yeah, and like Kaden, you said it, you still have the internalized racism and misogyny. I do too, 100%. I still have it, and I'm trying to use my voice, like in my small community and in other people's community, to like get rid of it.
Yeah.
I hate having it. I don't want it. It's something that it was a gift that I didn't want, but I got anyway. And yeah, I don't want people to have to experience it, because if I was in their shoes, I'd hate having to experience it. And like, again, because of the circles that I was in, I couldn't come to terms with my sexuality, or I guess unlabeled sexuality, for what it was until quite recently. And even then, I'm still struggling to talk about it. And there is, I can talk about it is because right now I'm talking into a void. I'm talking to faceless people on the other side of the Discord call, and it doesn't matter. And like, all of you have experience in the LGBTIQ community, whereas like the circles I used to run with, they don't. So it's still hard for me to talk about people from my past about it. And by past, I mean like people I've met in real life. I don't know. It's just a really interesting conversation. And like, as I said, as much as I love having these conversations, I would not be having this conversation right now if I didn't listen to the podcast I listened to today.
It's good you listen to the podcast then.
Yeah, they were talking about like the view of women in game, and that's just brought up all of these things that I used to think about that I haven't been thinking about recently. The internalized misogyny, the sexism in gaming, banter versus toxicity as well is a big thing for me. There's a big difference between calling someone shit because like you're bantering and calling someone shit because of their gender.
Yeah.
There is such a big difference, and I don't think that people understand the difference, like how drastic the difference is. Like, if you're calling someone shit for the banter, that's one thing. If you're calling someone shit because, like, from what you're seeing, they're actually doing bad at the game, that's another thing. But that's a completely different line to cross if you're calling someone shit because of their gender. That is insane. That is insane.
Yeah.
Eve, in your community, how are you, like, sorry, this is starting to sound like I'm running a fucking podcast.
Oh, I love it though.
Go on.
That's
But-
interesting.
How are you trying to like encourage the conversation around changing internalized misogyny, like expectations, all of that stuff?
I mean, I think definitely one for me is just like owning up to it myself and setting, because I think a lot of the time, this is a rant. I don't know whether I had it or whether I lost my train of thought before I got to it, but like I think a lot of the problem for younger people now, especially, so like when I was growing up, internalized misogyny meant thinking you were better than other girls because you didn't wear makeup. It was as surface level as that, basically.
Is
And
that
as soon
a
as
big
one
thing?
person-
Sorry to interrupt your train of thought. Is that a big thing where like
I mean, when I was growing up, I don't think I was as bad as like, oh, not like other girls, but I definitely had a superiority complex.
so
But, like,
sorry,
as soon
your
as-
superiority complex came from the fact that you didn't wear makeup but other girls felt the need to?
Not necessarily that, just like obviously it's internalized misogyny. It's just thinking less of like feminine things. I wasn't super bad because I still liked a lot of other feminine things, like liking boy bands and stuff like that. But you know, if you get like one masculine interest, suddenly it's like, oh, I'm special. I'm not like other girls. It wasn't super bad, but like it's so obvious to spot. So like it's easier to unlearn. But nowadays, people's internalized misogyny, you can see how it's coming out. Obviously, it's a byproduct of a good thing, but like we've had a lot of social progression in a really short period of time, so we all like know a lot about other things and other issues. So you'll see a lot of mostly young women explaining away their like internalized misogyny instinct to dislike other women. They'll try to think of like a problematic aspect so they don't have to face up to the fact that maybe they're just being incredibly critical of other women and other girls their age. And like one of the things I try to do is just be like, no, I'm flawed. I'm going to expose myself so you guys don't have to. Like I've had like really bad thought. Like the best thing you can do is just be like, yeah, I have internalized misogyny. I know we all know that that's a bad word now and no one wants to admit to it, but the best thing I can do is just lead by example and just be like, yeah, I've had it in the past and I've definitely still got aspects of it now. The best thing you can do is just admit to it and face up to it instead of dressing it up as something else.
Yeah, it's definitely a really important thing to like admit to and to talk about, and especially with like everyone comparing themselves to everyone else because of the way that I guess social media is right now. It's really good to see people who are well known on social media, people who have big accounts or such, who put on this professional face to know that like they aren't perfect even though they kind of make themselves look perfect. I know that like looking at cosplayers and such talk about things like that has been really helpful to me. I'm remembering a specific time when my grandfather insinuated that I wanted a thing because the popular girls had it, which wasn't entirely incorrect. I had seen somebody else with a thing and I was like, that's a really cool thing. But I didn't like the fact that it was specifically like the popular girls had it. And I'm trying to figure out if that was a thing of, oh, but I'm not like them because of anything to do with femininity, or if it was because no, I don't fit in with them, I'm a social outcast, so like I'm not going to try and fit in with them. And that's something that I haven't tried to figure out before, which is interesting.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
That's really cool to listen to, actually.
I definitely had it like the other way growing up. I was definitely like really into really girly things, and I was really into like the boy bands and everything, and I never like really criticized other girls for doing, not necessarily criticized, but like kind of was like, oh, I don't want to be girly sort of thing. But I definitely was more on the side of like, oh, I don't want to be masculine at all because that's wrong sort of thing. And that was that definitely stemmed from like my mom and everything, kind of whispering in my ear about that sort of stuff. Yeah, I definitely a lot more now. Like I'm doing things like buying men's clothes, which like I never did before, and like actually not, you know, wearing makeup out all the time, sort of stuff. Also, that's just like perfection issues as well on my side. But like I was definitely more like I can't be masculine at all, sort of thing when I was younger.
I really struggled to buy men's clothes up until I was like probably 16. But when I was 4, I only shopped in the boys' aisle. So that was definitely something about society's standards. I grew up doing very masculine things that I didn't realize were socially masculine because I was a social outcast. It was like a year ago when I figured out that sword fighting is considered a sport, because when people asked me what sport I played, I was like, I don't play sport. I don't like football or softball or anything, but I do sword fighting, which is apparently a sport which is masculine ? And I knew it was like a male dominated field, but that was only because it was very small, right? I don't know. I feel like a lot of these things, like in some ways I know about and I'm educated about, and in other ways I don't pay attention to because of the unique position that I'm in.
What do you mean by that? by you don't pay attention because of the position you're in?
I am a social outcast in the way that I was raised in an alternative school in a medieval society. I understand the people at Renaissance fairs more than I understand the people in the shopping center. And I'm neurodivergent, so I don't pick up on the social norms the same way everyone else does. There are a lot of things that I am blind to because my brain just doesn't deem it important. I don't notice what other people are thinking, which I think also is affecting me not noticing the toxicity in gaming because I haven't, like, I've noticed in some ways, but in other ways I haven't, I think.
Yeah. Being neurodivergent is a whole other topic when it comes to stuff like this. Unfortunately, I have no experience in that for me to contribute to that conversation whatsoever, so I'm gonna stay silent when it comes to that stuff. What do you think is important for like younger people to learn when it comes to like being more open and accepting and less toxic when it comes to LGBTIQ, mental health stuff, women, female gamers in general? Because one thing that I really hate about gaming culture when it comes to women is simp culture. I really hate simp culture. I cannot stress enough how much I hate simp culture. Simp culture is the reason why I become so quiet when I am in a call. Usually I'll be really quiet when I'm in a call with like this amount of people because of simp culture.
Careful with the banned words, ReinZ.
Oh crap, yeah. I hate shroom culture. Specifically, I remember I was, again, one of my old games, Valorant, I was in a lobby with some of my old friends and we got paired up with this random person and it turned out to be a gamer girl. I have a flirty personality and sometimes I don't know where the line is between me flirting and me being genuinely friendly. Either way, that's sort of irrelevant to this conversation, but I just thought that that's something I needed to preface. When we're in game, what I thought was me being genuinely nice, my friends took as me flirting with this person. Again, committed relationship. I'm not cheating on buddy. I love you, buddy. Yeah, I thought I was being nice to this gamer girl, but apparently I was being really flirty. And they started saying, oh, you're drimping for this girl more than us single people, blah, 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 blah. And ever since that moment, like, I remember that was the turning point in my mentality where when it comes to a gamer girl, I just want to stay silent. I don't want to talk to them because I'm afraid that not only my friends would misconstrue my intentions, but the gamer girl might think that, oh, this guy's a creep. He's trying to be nice so that he can get into my DMs or all that, blah, 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 blah. And, like, I just hate, like, gaming culture has gotten to a point where, like, I don't want to take away from the fact that there are genuine creeps out on the internet who are being nice because they feel like if they're nice enough, they can get something from female content creators. I do not want to take away from that. Do not misconstrue what I'm trying to say. But I just hate the fact that an aspect of shrimping culture has made guys with genuinely good intentions via what they're saying.
Yeah, I feel that so much. Obviously, it's very different for me, but I can really relate to what you're saying there. When you have intentions and they're misconstrued by other people, and because they misconstrue it, they act like it's a problem or they make fun of you for it, it is so sucky and it can be really, really dangerous for like your mentality and the way that you act. I know that I've changed behaviors and strayed away from behaviors because even though there was actually nothing wrong with what I was doing, which I know now, people made me think there was, whether or not they were joking. I would say the most important things to remember are like everyone has their own story. Communication is so important. Think of every show you've ever watched and all the problems in that show. I can guarantee that all of the problems were caused by a lack of communication. Yeah, I know it's scary to open up to people, but like communicate. Talk about how you...
I see that happening, but like I think the reason it happens in gaming culture a lot is because in the context of this example you're giving, Shay, TV shows have like multiple seasons to flesh out the problem and solve it, whereas like in an interaction in a game, not necessarily Minecraft, but like faster paced, larger games, so like Valorant, League of Legends, other big ones come to mind, Counter-Strike, they're all such...
I have experience with.
They're all... Yeah, that's fine. But they're all such quick and short interactions that communication is only limited to like 40-minute game.
Yeah, sure.
Your first impression, as soon as the first impression gets misconstrued, you instantly get stonewalled, you instantly get pigeonholed into like a category.
Okay, so what you want to do there, communication-wise, is as soon as that first impression happens and it seems like perhaps it was misconstrued, you apologize and you say, like, that was not my intention. Was that the way it came off? Is there anything I can do better? Are you comfortable with with that, or should I change?
But then again, it comes back to this whole shrimp culture of as soon as I do that, because again, that is something I've done. I've been like, I'm sorry if anything that I've said has offended you. It wasn't my intention. I'm just trying to be nice.
Yep.
As soon as I say that, I'm coming off as a shrimp, and all of a sudden, my friends are like saying, "Oh, ReinZ, you're a shrimp," or like that. The rest of the lobby is being toxic to me because
I hate
I think
to
that's
say it. You go.
No, go on. What are you gonna say?
Violate.
No, go
I
for it.
hate
What were
to
you
say
gonna
it, but at that point, get rid of
DM
the friends.
Yeah, that's something that I've done.
Yeah, because I think a lot of that as well, it comes back down to this idea that we can't see women without seeing them as like something that we're
As
getting something
objectifying
from,
them.
or
Yeah,
objectifying
that's what I
them,
was
even if
thinking
it's
as well.
sexually or romantically. So like
Yeah,
the whole
that's why I'm quiet.
culture thing is just, it doesn't benefit the guys. It sucks for everybody. But the very root of it is like, your friends can't see you having the same like flirty banter that you have with anybody if it's with like, oh, a cute girl or something. I'll always remember one of the first reoccurring people I had watching my stream was a guy, and he was really nice. He was never like flirty or weird or anything. He was just a nice person. But like some of my friends, just like, it became a joke that he was only watching because he was shrimping, and like that sucks for him because he wasn't really. He was just being a nice person and watching me play Minecraft. But also that's super disheartening for like me as well, because it's like, oh right, here's me thinking I was like good enough at this to have an engaged viewer, and actually everyone, even my friends watching, were like, It just comes down to the fact that like we can't see, like, why on earth would you interact with a woman if it wasn't for romantic purposes, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the whole culture around that is really bad at the moment.
Yeah, and then it also like what ReinZ, like how it's like been with ReinZ, it like stops like men from wanting to have positive interactions with these like females in the games because their friends give them so much shit about it.
Yeah,
And that's just so horrible because
Toxic
that also
masculinity. Yeah,
That's-
toxic
then that also-
masculinity.
it leads also to like men not having good interactions with females, and that's like shitty because you know we're humans. Everyone's
Yeah.
just a human.
This is
Yeah,
just like my opinion on it, and it could be wrong, but like it is very much a case of like, unfortunately, it is going to have to be the guy's problem to fix to a certain extent, because
Oh,
it comes
yeah.
down to ye old
Like we're not
nobody
like,
listens
females,
to women
yeah,
thing.
Yeah, I agree that most of that comes from the guy's perspective, but I don't think it's like, just to generalize it, right? I'm gonna put shrimps and nice guys in one box and the toxic guys in another. It's up to the toxic guys to fix themselves rather than the nice guys and the shrimps, because at the end of the day, the nice guys and the shrimps who are genuinely just wanting to interact with these female content creators, they're not doing anything wrong, but they're the ones that have to pay for their actions.
Ideally, yes, it would be the toxic people's problem to fix. But the thing about toxic people is that they don't fix problems. They don't admit that there are problems. So instead of it being their problem to fix, because we all know they're not going to do it, hence being toxic, and it's definitely not something that the people, like, I'm not saying that people who are being called these things should be the ones to fix it because they're the ones who are being called the things. It should be society in general. Collectively, everyone needs to stop seeing it as a thing. It was a couple of toxic people who made it a big deal. And now that it's a big deal, everyone's kind of uncomfortable about it. If we just, obviously it's very unrealistic, but if we just overnight say, fuck it, that's not a problem, who cares? Then it wouldn't be a problem anymore.
That's one of the things that I personally was afraid of when I saw who was joining the SMP. I was like, okay, so I'm the only guy here. How is this going to affect my interactions with people? Because I spend my life on Twitch and YouTube. Like, I consume content. I barely watch TV shows anymore unless me and Bonnie are watching Once Upon a Time. And so, like, I'm a big contributor into, like, Worm's chat, for example. And Sunny, on and off, I'm a big contributor into your chats. I don't want to come off as someone who's, like, interacting with you guys because I'm expecting something. I just, like, I guess in a sense
I feel like
I am
with
interacting.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think with that sort of thing, it's like you gotta give girls credits with that sort of stuff, because I feel like for me, definitely, and a lot of my friends that I've interacted with as well, we know when a guy is like interacting with us for a certain way, or we know when they're being a creep. Like when I meet somebody, within that first like 1 minute of having a conversation with them, I know immediately if this is some guy that I like want to be my friend or don't want to be my friend. And you've never come across to me as like the way that like you've wanted something from the chat, like because you are just honestly a good friend to me, and that's like it. And I feel like a lot of girls are able to like pick up on that.
But I think my main issue isn't the way that you guys as a content creators see me, or like as friends see me, but like as your chats and people who interact with your streams see me, because I don't want to come off as some sleaze or some like flirt or whatever. Like, okay, I do have a flirty personality, but I don't want that to be like all I'm known for. And like the way I'm carefully trying to, like, because I have a flirty personality, I'm trying to watch the way that I interact with you guys, because the way that chat works, people can pop in and out at any time, and if they pop in at the wrong moment, I'm gonna look like the biggest jerk, you know? And so, like, I have to be careful with my interactions around that, and that's why, like, with my flirty personality, I've had to dial it back so much, because I'm trying not to come off as a jerk. And clipping culture is a thing. The way that chat works, as I said before, like, people can jump in at any time and take things out of context. I just don't want that to happen. And so, like, that sort of links into something that Kaden said in my chat. He said women are scared of men in general because of how many bad men there are versus how many good men there are. And, like, TikTok is so good at giving me things that I don't realize apply to me. So I view myself as generally a nice guy, right? And I think that if I approach a woman, they can look at me and be like, yeah, ReinZ is a nice guy. But then at night, if I'm walking behind a female, they're not seeing ReinZ. They're just seeing there's intimidating figure that's walking behind me and I'm scared. And, like, that's something that I'm...
You know that, and you're aware of that is a good thing. It speaks well of you.
Yeah, but, like, that's, again, that's something that I'm only just realizing now. I think that, again, call me out if I'm being internally misogynistic, but I don't know if the problem is women unspeaking up about things that they're more afraid of, or it's not being talked about more often, that females have vocalized what they're scared of and just men aren't registering it. I know that there is an issue in terms of, like, the media that I consume. There's not enough exposure on what women are afraid of in men. I acknowledge that. Again, the content creators that I'm watching that aren't just, like, small creators like you guys, but, like, the big ones that I follow, they're becoming more intentional about calling out all of the stuff that guys in general need to know about women, if that makes sense. But yeah, do you guys...
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm gonna have to go.
Oh, good.
It's been nice
Okay.
talking to you guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Shay, Sunny, do you guys think that it's talked about enough about, like, what women are scared of in men? Like, do you think
Well,
that you guys speak about it enough? Go.
Firstly, in my content, the content that I consume and stuff, but that's because it's curated to me, like on TikTok and stuff. I do see a lot about that. I get so many videos that are like, hey, I have a shop open. These are the things I sell to protect yourself at night and everything. And I get, like, heaps of videos about, like, what's scary at night and, like, you know, oh, I find that scary. Oh, I also find that scary. And it's definitely talked about a lot in the circles that I am in.
Yeah.
But it's, like, less talked about in the circles that obviously other people are in, which is
Totally.
probably the problem. Because, like, circles I am, we're already aware of what makes us scared. We're already aware we're talking about, you know, it to each other, and we're kind of bouncing off the fact that we all know that sort of thing. But yeah, I guess in the other communities, to no fault of, like, you know, our own, it's just, you know, they aren't talking about it necessarily as much because they're probably talking about other things or something. But yeah, probably just not registering to some other people. But all I know is, yeah, I definitely know, like, I definitely have many videos about that sort of stuff on my TikTok and, like, other, like, social medias as well.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar of, like, I kind of learned about this stuff from the internet mostly because the algorithm decided that I should hear about this stuff. Yeah, I think maybe the reason that you haven't seen much about it online is because you're not in those circles, and the circles you're in only just started realizing that, hey, people don't know this because they're not in the circles that talk about it. So I think it's good to talk about it more and in more platforms and stuff. But, like, yes, I think it is talked about a lot. Just
Not in the circles that I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, and, like, while it is, like, TikTok has, like, not necessarily informed me about this stuff, it's more, like, confirmed my thing because, like, you know, I'm too scared to go out alone by myself at night, and I know that, and I've been, like, you know, drilled into me that sort of stuff, like, that I shouldn't do that, and, like, I've had friends with really bad experiences and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I've been warned about it, it's been confirmed to me, and now I'm talking to other people about their fears of it as well.
I think that's really sad too.
yeah.
It is.
And one of the interesting things, I don't know if I'm veering off topic. I feel like it's on topic, and I'm going to try and tie it in with the topic. This is a thing that my brain goes on occasionally. It's a familiar rant to me. People being worried about other people, but with stereotypically women being scared of strange people that they don't know, especially at night. But also what ReinZ was mentioning with worrying about Twitch chat misconstruing something because of the nature of chat, people popping in and out and only seeing certain parts, sort of ties into panoptical surveillance, and that's really apparent in this online era where pretty much everything you see can be seen by someone.
Yeah.
And partly you just have to not worry about what other people think, but that can also, I understand that, like, it's your character, it's kind of a business thing, it is the opinion that people form of you and your channel, and that a lot. But it's that whole thing of, like, there are some people whose opinions aren't worth listening to. They
And,
can't
like,
care what everyone thinks.
the people that do care and the people that do watch you, that watch you for a long period of time, understand and know that sort of thing. And they're the ones that stick around with you, and they're the ones whose opinions really do matter.
Yeah.
Instead of someone who just necessarily just pops in and out of chat. Maybe they'll misread it, but the people who do stick around will understand that know that it was just like, one small thing out of context. And that happens with everything. Like a sentence I could have said in a chat could also be misconstrued if someone just saw the sentence and nothing else.
Yeah. Like,
And that's like the horrible thing about the online community is that it's so easy to misconstrue someone and falsely accuse them of something just because you've heard one side or like one part of something instead of the entire.
Yeah, like anything you say can be used out of context, which is really true. With my flirty personality, if I say something in like a friend sort of capacity, if someone pops into chat and then they see in my stream, oh, he's married to Bunny, like, oh, suddenly I'm cheating or something like that. Yeah. I don't know. Like,
But also, characters in TV shows get to do that without being called problematic, and they were scripted that way. You're allowed to be a person.
yeah.
Just full stop. You are allowed to be a person. And if somebody in passing thinks that it's a little weird, whatever that thing you just did is, okay, they're allowed to have their opinion. They're allowed to be wrong. I know it hurts, but like, you can't cater to everyone.
Yeah, like that person that was in my chat today, they were like, all right, I'm bored, I'm leaving. And it's like, okay, that's hurtful. And like you stuck around for about 2 seconds and immediately assumed my content was boring because of one section where I wasn't talking. And it's hurtful and everything. And it's obviously a very different like context to what you're talking about, ReinZ, but it's like you just really do have to ignore, or at least, I don't know.
Make what you make, enjoy what you enjoy,
Ooh.
stop worrying about what everyone else thinks. Back to that thing of teenage girls aren't allowed to like anything without being made fun of for
Which
it.
is where this conversation actually started from.
Where this conversation has started from. We've already learned that lesson, Rein. We've had it drilled into us from day one. You need to stop caring what other people think of you, because if you care what everyone thinks of you, you're not going to be anything. You're not going to like anything.
Yeah.
Everyone is always going to have the opinion that you should. We've had it drilled
Yeah,
into
like,
us from day one.
I liked K-pop when it was uncool to like K-pop, like before BTS got popular and stuff. And I remember like meeting somebody and them being like, oh, I like K-pop. And they were so scared to like tell me that they like K-pop. And they only did once I mentioned it out loud. And that's because someone had bullied them so badly at their school just for mentioning they liked K-pop. And I openly admitted it all the time and stuff. And then like, I remember once one guy tried to be like, oh, you like K-pop? And I'm like, yeah, shut up. So what? Fuck off. It's something that I enjoy and I watch. Do you have a problem with that? And then he was just like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think so. The reason why I was so overconfident about that is because I was bullied in year 5 by my best friend for about a year because I was too scared to stand up for myself. So I've gotten a lot better at standing up for myself about that sort of stuff.
Have you been exposed to since you started, and how do you deal with being objectified?
Well, I have been, yes, like quite a few times. And I think my thing was I went into stream like, because I had been watching previous female streamers and stuff, and I went in with the, like, it's disappointing and it's really sad that I went in with this, but I went in with the, okay, I know. It wasn't a, oh, what if I get objectified? It's a, I'm going to be objectified by the stuff I wear and the things I do just because I'm a girl gamer who looks semi, like, attractive and, is female. And I knew that was going to happen, but, like, it does, freak me out a little bit because I obviously don't know if I'm ace and stuff, so that sort of stuff just freaks me out in general regardless.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of fact of, like, the first few times I got them, they really did affect me, and like I stopped wearing like this one top that I wore on stream once because like I got like quite a few comments about it, so I stopped wearing it on stream because of that. But I've like started to be like, okay, I need to like stop letting them affect me or just stop looking at them and let my mods deal with them. It's horrifying that I think this and that it's the case, but I'm gonna have to just get a harder skin about that sort of stuff because it's inevitably going to happen. And what I can do about it is just create a community that I know that the people that support me and actually invest in my community aren't going to be like that. And that's what I think I'm going for right now. And the people that will come in and objectify me are people that have just joined out of nowhere and seen me. They're not people who are part of my community that I really care about.
They just click on you and then click away, and like it's
yeah,
no harm,
exactly.
No foul for you. Yeah, that's really cool to hear because like it's something that all female content creators have to deal with because they're on a camera, they're in the spotlight essentially.
And some female streamers are okay with that, and that's perfectly fine if they
Yeah.
are. It's perfectly fine in their chat. So it's just the people that are in their chat. They have to realize that, sure, it might be fine in someone else's chat, but it may not be fine in someone else's, because everyone has a different standard of what they allow in their chats and what they want and sort of stuff.
So just on that point, so there's a couple of just chatting streamers that I know of through TikTok that like they make their streams off like sexualizing themselves.
And I think they are allowed to do that, and all the power to them for doing that, because it's, you know, it's their body, their choices and what they want to do, and they can do those things if they want. It's up to the people that watch them to realize, sure, maybe that person's done that, and that's perfectly fine, and maybe still it's not okay for them to completely objectify them in the chats because they're a human being, they don't deserve that. But the people in chat also have to realize that maybe, like I said, what's okay in one person's stream is definitely not okay in someone else's stream, and they should not be able to bring that and transfer it over just because one person's okay with it and another person isn't.
So what burden would you place on that content creator then? If you're saying that it's mainly on the chat to switch their mentality,
And,
when like if they, for example, were on that just chatting streamer who's sexualizing themselves to get clicks or whatever, and then suddenly that viewer comes to you, what do you think the burden is on that streamer?
Well, while it is probably horrible that the burden is on the female, but I don't know, maybe
Female.
she
Could be anyone.
yeah, or anyone, exactly. Maybe they just have a conversation with their chat every so often being like, hey, yeah, so like this is a thing that like I do, but like make sure you don't do it to other streamers, to like talk to their chat about it in case they have return viewers and stuff that do watch them. Then they can have like a little PSA, because I think it's just good to have talks with your chat regardless. Like I have chats like my chat where it's like, hey, it's okay for you guys to like talk about this and this in the stream, but if someone brought up something else that I wasn't uncomfortable talking with, I would say that, and I'd be like, hey, that might be okay with another streamer, but it's not okay with me, and like blah blah blah, not bring it up in my chat. And I think that should be just a common thing that all streamers should be able to do with their chats.
Talking about boundaries is important in any kind of relationship, whether that be with family, friends, a romantic or a sexual relationship, or with your viewers, the people who view the content you create. Boundaries apply everywhere, and that's important things to know. It's your job to uphold your own boundaries, and it's their job to respect your boundaries. And if they don't respect your boundaries, then that's what the ban button is for, because they're not adhering to the social contract.
I just want to add on top of that, like women creators are allowed to stream however they want and whenever they want, and it shouldn't be up to like other people to say, oh, they can't stream just because they're using like, you know, sexuality, because again, it's their body, they can do with it as long as they please, as long as they have like a plus 18 mature stream on and they're not violating any of the Twitch guidelines, then you know, all the power to them to do those sorts of things.
Sex work is valid work.
Exactly, it is.
Do you think, that's gonna open a whole other can of worms, but in the context of Twitch, so I don't want to talk about like sex work and whatever, but do you think that specifically female just chatting streamers who are sexualizing themselves for clicks, do you think that they're setting back gaming culture or like Twitch culture in general?
Nah.
Because of sexualizing themselves, people think that they can click on female streamers in general and expect them to be sexualized?
I don't know enough. I haven't personally experienced any just chatting streamers who are like that, so I can't say that I really know the culture and the community around it. But while I can understand where you're coming from with saying that maybe it will alter expectations in general, I think it is important to remember that it's also where's my brain going with this? I kind of want to say that it's like also kind of progressive, because getting to do that as a choice, and because of this online era, again, I'm going like way too generalized with this, but like because of this online era, there are so many more opportunities and so many more places to do sex work and to do it safely. Like when it's a digital thing that you can control whether or not people who make you comfortable get to interact with you, doing anything online, producing content, being an entertainer online gives you so much more control over what sort of interactions you have. So I think, sure, in some ways it could conceivably bring expectation, but I don't think that that's necessarily stepping backwards. I think some of those expectations could affect some things negatively, but nothing is black and white.
I like to think that, like, yeah, what Shay says is 100% right and everything. But even if there were people on Twitch that weren't doing those sorts of things and, you know, doing those just chatting streams, the people that are objectifying them in those streams would still regardless objectify women. Like,
In
it's
general.
not, you know, because of those people. Maybe like
Yeah.
they're there and there's the people in those chats doing that, but people in those chats probably still would do it regardless of
Yeah,
those
true.
streamers.
Yeah.
That's a very good point.
It's on
Yeah.
the person rather than the streamer.
Yeah. So I do agree that like all streamers should talk about this sort of stuff and like bring it up with their chats. I think that's like a very progressive and good way to start getting chats moving the better direction than they are right now.
Yeah.
Baseline, to sum it up, a person's behavior is entirely that
On them.
person. It is entirely on them. The media and content that they consume can point out things such as, if you act in this way, remember these things. You can educate, but it is always
Yeah,
up to
help-
them to change. Nobody ever does
Help
something
push
because
them.
of you.
Help push them in the right direction, but it's up to the person whether they want to like continue in that direction or not.
Yeah.
Somebody else's actions are never your fault. You are never to blame for something that somebody else has done. If they choose to act in a certain way, that is their choice. All you can do is try and educate and inform them. But if they aren't listening, they aren't listening, and that is not your fault. You can try
Exactly.
and teach
For
them to play chess,
a
but it will
perfect
never-
example, ReinZ, is like the podcast. Like you heard that, and because you heard that, it started pushing you in a better direction.
Yeah.
You're the kind of person that hears that sort of stuff and then turns in the right direction because of that.
Yeah.
Everyone should talk about those sorts of things, and then it's up to them if they want to continue down those paths, which you have done.
Yeah.
Getting the conversation going is great,
Mhm.
but talking about this stuff isn't necessarily going to change the behaviors of others.
No, but it's definitely going to probably reach out to at least one or two people that would be listening in, and they would make them realize, oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I want to continue learning about this or talking about this with other people.
Fair enough.